I've been meditating on Jesus being consoled in the garden. I wanted to ask your thoughts on what Luther called creation, consoling the creator. Was God experiencing fear for the first time? Oh, wow. I'm not going to go out on a limb and answer that. But actually, I will. No. I mean, it depends on what you mean by fear. It's a really easy answer. If you mean Yirat Yahweh, and I don't know a lot of Hebrew, but Yirat Yahweh, the fear of Yahweh, the fear of the Lord, Yirat Joshua. That sounds nice too. If you're talking about that, then Jesus experienced that at the moment of conception. Like in the full way, the whole creation and even all fallen men experience it in a first use kind of way. Can I just say that without getting too tied into intrastapular? Yeah, I meant to say that. Arguments. Jesus' incarnation redeems everything that man is. And this is classic Orthodox Christology. The Lutherans pull it from Chemnitz, who pulls it from everyone of value who came before and everybody who was always understood as being Orthodox on this matter prior to the Reformation. Okay? So in this then, if it is not able to be said of Jesus, then, and it is able to be said of us, then we are not in Jesus. There's some part of humanity that he's leaving out. Not just sin, right? But humanity, which he created, that he now leaves behind. And I mean, that's a very integral? It is integral. Is it a ventricle? No, not at all. It is a very narrow debate. And to get to where and how that all explains itself out with all the Bible verses, I mean, the book is this thick, and The Two Natures of Christ by Chemnitz is the place to go on that matter. Rather than say a Luther quote. Luther's great, right? But Luther is just, he's kind of like me. Can you imagine taking every video I ever said, putting it all into transcript? I'm not kidding. And then publishing that? That's a lot of Luther. So, Chemnitz sat down under the school that Luther's flood enabled. And he sat down and he organized what was before with what they remembered had been taken from them. And he did that in a number of ways. And one of them was, again, this Two Natures of Christ. So it's a phenomenal work. I mean, you have to crawl on your knees to this book. This is a guy who spoke who wrote and read multiple ancient languages, not multiple local ones, multiple ancient languages, and would have been able to write and potentially speak in at least Latin, right? Along with Luther's German and whatnot. So the guy is crawling our knees to this guy is someone who achieved far more than anyone in our generation will, no matter what we do. If you want to know more about it, and then see how the Orthodox, what they get right is the incarnational redemption tie-in. Now, the danger in that philosophical argument, again, is if all redemption happens at the incarnation, then what's the cross for? It's just sort of like the shadow that fills it all out. And so Lutherans kind of don't like talking that way. It's not like the Orthodox really talk that way either. Lutherans tend to see connections where it's going to go because, we've been there before. We don't want to go back kind of thing. So that's a good thing, but it also can be a bit, I don't know how to say this, game nerd, not aware of reality-ish, of a screaming geek. Oh, there's a word and an Easter egg if you want all in one tabletop nerd reality metaphor. Was that a sentence? Can I put a period there? I'm not really sure. Learning, the Orthodox get it right that at the incarnation, Jesus changes creation by taking it into himself. So we talk about him being incarnate, but really, it's like the carne was inspired, right? It was spiritualized again with the full divine second person Jesus. Named Jesus now for the first time, right? So in this, he would have had the fear of the Lord, the Yirat Yahweh, well before this, or before the moment in the garden. What other kinds of fear are there? I'm not sure if there are other kinds. There is the way we respond to fear when we don't realize that all fear is ultimately the fear of Yahweh, the fear of Joshua. And And again, that's a longer thread that I really want to pull on right now. But there is the wrong kind of fear, which is the fear which would lead a man to take action without trust in God, that we might confuse with temptation because we can't be tempted without it. We might confuse that and then import that or impute that to Jesus' experience of temptation. So if you really want to get at the question, it's sort of like when Jesus was tempted, how'd that one work out? Because I only know of temptation as including the desire to do the wicked thing, which I'm trying not to do at the best moment, right? That's the best temptation. It's like, that's evil. I'm not going to do it even though I'm tempted, right? That's the meaning of the word for us. But we can't import all of that to Jesus because we know clearly he was without sin. And we're told that as well by St. Paul. Without sin in every way. And we know this anyway because it's required for redemption. It's required for any of this to work. If we're going to talk logic about the thing, and we can. Jesus enters creation and becomes it in such a way that sick people around him now become healthy. People in darkness now become enlightened. His experience of creation, I imagine more the way I describe it in an Echo, another book over there, that it would have been strange. The guy created it all, so he knows how it's all supposed to work. How much did he veil of that understanding in his ability to learn and grow as a man so that he would join with us in the knowing of nothing? I tend to be of the... this is all imaginary schools here now. Thanks for the dislike. I tend to be of the... I'm going to lose her name now. Out of Egypt, Christ the Lord out of Egypt school of thought that Jesus didn't know as a 6-month-old with like cognitive theory the atoning sacrifice he would make, even though by the time he's 12, I would say he does when he talks about his father's business, but that he came to understand this through the studying of the Old Testament scriptures and prophets, and that it was just obvious to him the entire time that they spoke to him as the one who stood at the center of it all to offer the final sacrifice and fulfill the whole thing. And then that came to be as the experience of a man figuring a thing out. Now, I don't know that I can point to any scripture that like says, well, that's the way it happened, because this kind of question you can't do that on, really. But I will say this, that what the scriptures say of man, because this is what we can point to, what I said a few moments ago, that again, as scripture establishes, and Chemnitz proved in the Two Natures of Christ substantially, what this shows is that if Christ has it, then it is good and it is of us. Right? So that temptation moment is a moment where he experiences the offer of something that is not in of itself evil, which he can actually want in a good and perfect way. Such as what? The rulership of all the kingdoms of the earth and having the devil, and not running everything? Yeah, I'm pretty sure Jesus wants that. That's why he's here. But to get it, he'd have to go a different path than the one the scriptures had prophesied for him. He'd have to diverge from the word, right? And so he refuses to do that as a man. So he's definitely emphasizing the fear of the Lord, the Yirat Yahweh. He is definitely practicing it constantly. The fear which leads one to not trust that God does it. The fear that would lead David to kill Saul rather than to let the Lord kill Saul. That fear, Jesus, I would just say he never had, because that would be self-love, right? That would be the breaking of the first commandment is the fear of self, I think, the fear of man.